free trade, cruelty-free, recycled, organic, produced locally, what do these statements mean, and why do they, or should they, influence the purchases that we choose to make? Have you ever picked up a product and wondered, how can they sell this for so cheap? Or have you ever thought about where the product came from, who made it, how it was made, or what materials were used? What's the difference between a product made in China versus a product made in Ontario? Why do so many products come from China anyways? All of these questions address something called ethical consumerism. In this video, you will be learning what ethical consumerism is and how it affects you personally and people around the world.
Ethical consumerism involves making sure that the products and services you purchase are ethical, meaning that they do not hurt or exploit other humans and don't harm the animals or the environment. For example, an ethical consumer, before purchasing a sweater, would look into many things. They would look into what materials the sweater was made from. If the sweater was made from fur, they would look into whether this was real or synthetic. Also, they would look into who made the sweater, whether they were adults or children, whether they were fairly paid and working in reasonable conditions.
Of course, as you can imagine, being an ethical consumerist takes a lot of work, but is it worth it?
Did you know that US and Canada, with only 5% of the world's overall population, consists for over 30% of its overall consumption? Now compare this to South Asia, where they have over 23% of the world's population, but only responsible for 2% of its overall consumption.
Did you know that when you or your parents buy a $4.95 can of Maxwell House coffee, the beans in them were only bought for a quarter? The workers who made the coffee were only paid $3 for working the entire day. And they come from corporate farms that use environmentally poisonous pesticides and clear-cut forests to produce the highest possible yields.
Or how companies have now started to promote aspartame as a prospective alternative to sugar when they know that there are many health problems associated with it, but it's cheaper for them to produce. Many companies are more concerned about making as much profit as they can rather than being ethical. Whether this means using children to make their products, having poor working conditions for their employees, or even using harmful toxins within their products in order to expand the product margin.
Being aware of these things and actively doing something about it is what can make you an ethical consumerist, also known as a positive buyer. Making the right decisions, such as purchasing free trade coffee and not buying products from companies you know use unethical practices, goes a long way. Being knowledgeable about where your products are coming from is the first step to impact your own well-being, but also impacting companies to go back to producing ethically.